Good afternoon, everybody. We will now start our fourth talk for the STEM Science Outreach course that we have here at CDU. And today is a special one because it's Science Week, so it must be special. And to present today, we have Gagila, and she is a technologist, but she's really interested on showing everybody that, as she says, that this technology is not rocket science. Even if it is rocket science, everybody can understand if you just put some effort and work towards it. And she has been doing these really awesome workshops. She's the founder of the Build It Up. He and Darwin and I have been to a couple of her workshops, and they are really cool. If you have usually children around 11 and older really enjoy it. They will learn really interesting skills. And today she's going to talk about her experience running these workshops and science outreach. And technology outreach, really. It's more STEM. And I think that's really awesome because this is the first one we have more in the area of technology. Up to now was all science. So yeah, so I'm really, really looking forward to this talk. Thank you very much, Gagi.
Thank you so much, Carla. Appreciate it. So as Carla very eloquently put it, I've just always been passionate about science and technology all my life, really. Started as an engineer more than 10 years ago. And for me, it was always a natural career choice, really, or career progression. I grew up in Mumbai, and a lot of my cousins growing up around me, most of them were in engineering. So never really felt out of place. However, and then I decided to go to US to pursue my MBA. And then nearly 3 years ago, we decided to come to Australia, and we landed in Darwin. So more through my exposure in the United States of America and Australia, I did sense or realize that STEM is not necessarily cool enough for kids, or not as cool as I would like it for them to be. And that's sort of when I started investing more time. So I've always been in the technology profession. I started as a developer. I was a business analyst for a long time, and currently I manage IT-based projects. However, as I said, because I had that sort of passion around STEM, a few years ago, I sort of started investing a lot of my weekend time or after hours time, really, focusing on STEM initiatives and outreach programs. With Build It Up, Build It Up really had its humble beginnings right here in CDU. I think March 2018, we had our first sessions that we sort of launched a 3-part trial where we asked anyone who's interested in science and really targeted parents and children, because that was the key aspect for me as well, that I just didn't want it to be an activity where kids get dropped off. And I wanted to really get the parents engaged and sort of have parents and children talking to each other over science or technology or engineering. So that was really how it all started, as I said, back in March 2018. And we did have a small hiccup in terms of we went through Cyclone Marcus and had to reschedule a bit back in 2018. But we've come really a long way since then. And again, when Carla approached me for this session, and she asked me, oh, so what do you want to talk about? And I really had to think hard because there's so many aspects of or moving parts really in this. But for me, the most relatable and the topic that comes to mind and close to heart is really making that technology relatable. And it's not that difficult because it really surrounds us all everywhere. It's really hard to go to a place and not have some technological device or aspect associated with you. It probably is easier here in the top end, because you do have challenges reaching out and spreading or using technologies in remote communities. However, in general, if you see around the world, it's sort of become a more and more connected place, and even more connected than we probably thought it would ever be. So anyhow, that's sort of my long intro. I'll sort of get right into it. All right. So as I said, what does the world around us look like today? We are surrounded by smart devices. It is you everywhere and anywhere you go. People are constantly clicking, touching, or talking to devices. Sometimes devices are listening without really telling us that they're listening. There's that constant, as I said, ever surroundedness of technology. And it's also a world of instant gratification. We are used to seeing videos, we're used to clicking or doing something instantly. It's no longer a world where we are dedicated and watching television. We are always multitasking. People are rarely watching news on television these days. It's more your phones, tablets, devices, so on and so forth. So sort of wanted to take a step back from that, and it's sort of just wanted to remind us that there's so much to do and so many distractions around us, but you sort of get so caught up in that you are not sure whether you're really experiencing life. You're just going through it, and the weekend, running through the weekend, and then the week goes through quite fast. So, and you're always clicking, everyone's recording everything, but there's so few memories. So with this sort of an environment, again, we are looking at the workforce of the future and the leaders of the future. So I just wanted to, again, with this initiative, make sure that we are investing in in the leaders of future, really. And STEM gets misrepresented a lot. It's become this sort of keyword that everyone wants to use. Everyone wants to do something STEM because it's so cool to do like STEM initiatives. However, I really wanted to make sure that we still continue to focus on the core skills, problem solving, critical thinking, working in teams, communicating, focusing on the problem at hand. I have struggled so many times uh, trying to not help participants with the problem at hand, because they're constantly looking in your direction. They want cues, and because they've spent about 2 minutes reading the puzzle, and now they're not sure what to do. But you still want them to go through that experience and try to see if they can solve this themselves. So that's sort of, I guess, what I'm trying to do with this slide here. So what's the end story? What's the bottom line? Are we doomed? Of course not. So I just wanted to, again, I don't know if you've seen this image before. It sort of went viral. And obviously this is an image of, when the newspapers were launched or came, instead of talking to each other, everyone was suddenly reading newspapers. And sort of a similar environment we live in. We get so much criticism on being addicted to or constantly being on our phones, right? And our parents were probably, or my parents certainly, were reading newspapers most of the time. So they turned out okay. So I think there's hope. And as I said, if we continue to focus on the core skills, we should be able to get the right results and prepare the leaders of tomorrow for the world that's really going to unfold in front of us. There's so much talk of all these skills that we need. We don't even know what kind of skills we are going to need in the next 10 years, because we don't even know what the job market is going to look like. Everyone keeps talking about change, and we're not really sure what the best way to prepare is. So for me, the best way to prepare is to look inside, to look and focus on those key skills of critical thinking, problem solving, communication, teamwork. And so that's sort of what, again, drives the sort of workshops that we do at Build It Up. I think I'll just, a quick shout on empathy and soft skills, just because, I know, we, with artificial intelligence, and again, a lot of buzzwords probably, but I know there's this, to some extent, there's fear mongering, but there's a lot of talk about machines really replacing a lot of the jobs of the future. So, for example, an executive assistant that we had today, today we have softwares that can run meetings for you, that can run your calendars, that can really run your lives. There are devices that you can teach to make you coffee at certain time of the day or turn your lights on or off for you. However, you keep hearing this message that, oh, you can't really teach them empathy, or you can't really teach a machine soft skills. So with that, I think we've really recognized, or as the world has really recognized, that that's something that's unique to us as human beings, and that's not something you can't really predict what another, I mean, you can if I have all the information about you, but typically you can't really teach a machine to be empathetic, or to have the same sort of soft skills that over time you could that they could replace humans in that aspect. So just, I think if, that's why I just thought I'll mention that here, because again, when you are in that sort of a community setting where you have all these people put together and you give them a common problem to solve, that's where you see a lot of that conversation happening and that engagement happening. And you see them really moving towards that common cause, and you see that spirit of entrepreneurship, and really trying to address the problems or solve the needs of the greater community at hand. So, and that's, I think, if we continue to focus on that, I think we will be okay. We won't be doomed. All right, so again, I don't know if some of you may recognize this image, because when I was growing up, we still had cassettes and video cassettes, and we used them for recordings. So again, I think everyone sort of knows this now. The only thing constant about technology is that it's ever changing. But as I said, you can't really miss it. You have to really, really go look hard if you want to find a place where technology is not present. And as I said before, a lot of tomorrow's jobs don't really exist yet. So how, in that sort of a scenario, how do you prepare the workforce of tomorrow? And as I said, so the answer is always, you focus on the core skills. And as I said, you just continue to embrace technology, which is heartening to see. A lot of the parents that come to the workshops, I see so many young kids. It's very heartening to see how encouraging that sort of environment is. A lot of kids may not necessarily know the concepts, and which is okay. We really encourage people with no skills to come participate in the workshop, because the idea is that we just want you to focus on the hands-on. It's okay to get it wrong, and it's okay to just take your time. You don't need to move. We all don't need to move at the same pace. So that's sort of the other thing that we try to do as well. As I said, and with all this, all we're trying to do is make sure that they're confident, make sure that they are left with a positive experience around the technology, and not necessarily focus so much on the end result. And it's, as kids, they're probably more interested in if the project works or doesn't work, which we always try to help them towards that. But I think it's just the parents generally end up learning a lot more, because and I'm often surprised they have more questions too, which as I'm now which has made sure that I read a bit more and brush up my theory a bit more before I go, because initially, as I said, we were always hoping to focus on the hands-on aspect, doing science, doing technology part of it. But it is very heartening to see that people are curious and they do ask those questions around, no, but why does the light turn on when I turn the switch on? Why does or if I have a sensor, then when it gets dark, why does this happen, or why doesn't it happen? So again, when people are confident, you'd be assured that they would come back to those sort of, they would look for more of those experiences in the future. They'd seek more of those experiences in the future. And because, as I said, technology is omnipresent, it is here now, it is going to be there in the future. We do need people who are comfortable with technology, because there'll be jobs in technology. So that's where innovation is going to happen. And you can't have innovation if you don't have that curiosity and questions from people around technology. If you keep clicking and touching, then you are not exploring that layer underneath on why that device is doing whatever it's doing. So we keep trying to draw it all back to the basic components, to the basic foundation of STEM, really, which is the building blocks, the basic components, basic tools. And once you do that, you'd be rest assured that they will know that, oh, there's probably an LED underneath, that's why it's glowing red or green, or there's a switch inside, there's an electrical switch inside, which is why it just did that when it turned dark. So, which I do, again, it's very heartening to see, every time you get these kids in the workshop, the kind of questions it opens up their world to. And having that sort of an adult or a guardian that they know also engaging in that sort of conversation is just an added benefit, because now they're having that conversation after the workshop at their dinner table, or when they show off their projects to their friends and family and explain how it works. All right, so I just added this here because, as I said, we are sort of in that world where we are constantly, we have touch screen devices, we have phones, we have smart devices, smart lights that we don't even need to tell them. We just set the time and they are going to do that automatically at that set time, or whatever date, turning lights on, sorting your meetings, getting your mail delivered, whatever it is. Everything that you look at now, you are being encouraged to think less, to do less, and to feed more information to devices so that they can do all of it and make your life simple. And I have seen a lot of STEM focused initiatives that also encourage you to do that. So there's a lot of web design, but web design with Wix, where you don't really end up designing anything. Again, it's a lot of plug and play. You have kids nowadays, again, grade 6 kids that are being asked, oh, do you want to do C++ or Python as programming languages? They're being exposed, obviously, constantly to smart devices. In this unusual days and times of COVID, you are even being encouraged to have video calls with your friends, because you can no longer have a face-to-face, physically meet them. And you also have online learning, because obviously you can't, schools have been affected with everything else that's been going on. When I was in grade 6, all I was taught was computer is an electronic machine. So there's a huge amount of change that you've seen just in those, I guess, 10, 20 years of schooling. And I'm sure it's just going to get even more crazy in the next decade, next couple of decades. But what I'm trying to get at is that, again, all of it is focusing on that top layer of software or programming without necessarily showing enough aspects of hardware or what it is that lies underneath it all. And that's where I thought, no, hang on a minute. Is there a way we can do something to get these kids more switched on, around that layer, what can we really do about it? And then that's where sort of this whole idea came together. And I was happily surprised that it's not just kids that don't know a lot of things about that hardware. And we did, so then now we actually encourage even young adults or adults to participate if they're keen. But, and you'd be surprised, I did a session with the Council of the Aging, and I got very interesting questions from that session. So essentially people who've gone through 50, 60 years of their life, but they still had that curiosity and passion to chase, and try something like this for the first time. A lot of them were trying this for the first time. So it was really, again, very heartening to see that. But again, the idea is that you should never really stop learning, and you should never really stop questioning anything that's around you. That's sort of the first step to unlocking the potential both inside you and as well as what the technology can do for you. So that's, just keep doing what you're doing, and always try, be keen on trying something new. All right, so again, I guess, a shout out to our Build It Up illustration. But what, again, we were trying to do was, so as I said, we started more focusing on giving a platform for parents and children. But as I said, what we discovered was there's a whole, especially here in the top end, there's a whole bigger community out there that's curious about science and technology and keen to get their hands wet. So what we tried to focus on was, again, we broke it down into a series of simple workshops and experiments which they could relate to. So how does your how do the lights in your house work? What's the difference between solar and electricity? If I gave you a battery instead of solar cell, would the circuit still work? And then again, we do breadboards as well, breadboard-based sessions. With breadboards, the idea is more just to focus, just to be able to reuse and recycle the components. And then there's traffic lights, we do indicators, security system. So all of these things, almost everyone that lives in a city sees traffic lights every day. They step out of their house. But what's really the logic behind it? There's a circuit involved, there's a timer, just getting them to think about that, all of that, and then getting them to build a circuit that works, and then for them to be able to share that experience with their friends and family is just invaluable. Like, you can't put a price on that. And again, to think of it like, you've grown up, you are an adult or you're a senior, and you still never really had to think twice about, you just accepted that technology around you, absorbed it and assimilated it in your life without thinking much about it. But now through these workshops, you're able to really build your own mini projects together. I actually, it was, again, another example from one of the attendees that came to the session. My coming to the session actually encouraged them to fix their own coffee machine, which I thought was amazing because I didn't know how to fix it. And then they were talking about creating an app, and then being able to, I don't know if they were joking, but they were saying that I'm going to make my phone give the command to the coffee machine so that it'll make its coffee for me. I said, okay, that sounds awesome. Tell me when you have the app ready, I'll install it. But So, you know, just all of these things, I obviously never envisioned that's the sort of impact Build It Up would have. But having seen and heard and so many kids just, you know, leaving such positive feedback, it is something that definitely encourages me and motivates me to do even more and reach out even further. All right, now that um, I know a lot of people, the first time they come to the session, they have no idea what they have signed up for. So again, just a quick glimpse of what sort of projects we build. A lot of them are soldering based, but as I said, we also do breadboards. And then that was a solar cell in one of the projects earlier. So again, you know, learning to test, inspect, troubleshoot. I actually enjoy it more when the project doesn't work, because it means that the people have to invest and figure out what went wrong. And a lot of times we have friendly competitions between the family on who will finish the project first. It's amazing. We try and do different components. We start people on smaller, simpler projects, less number of components, and then we continue on to, you know, ICs, chips, programming circuits, so on and so forth. As I said, traffic lights is actually one of our more complicated projects. And just leaving you with a glimpse of some happy participants. A lot of them a lot of them trying these projects for the first time, but then ending up coming again and again, because as I said, we have about a group of 10, 12 projects that we try and have the participants try the complex projects once they are used to soldering and familiar with most of the components. All right, so again, as I said, you know, there's so much change happening around us. Our problems of today, we can't just focus on the problem itself. We always have to have an eye on the future and what that is going to look like to develop an effective solution. And you can't really do that unless you have been exposed to that sort of uncertainty or that sort of a challenge early in your life. If you keep, you know, and again, it's sort of relates back to that instant gratification sort of an environment where, you know, it's easy if you don't follow something, or if something doesn't work, it's very easy to replace it, and that's sort of not necessarily the best mindset for future. So again, every time we have participants on board, you know, and every time there's something that doesn't work, either it's a technology glitch, or either it's something related to their own project, we encourage them to just spend a lot of time asking, you know, just ask yourself, ask someone around you, and if you still don't find the answer, ask someone else, you know. That's how we try to solve problems. And what that does is, you know, it forces you and those around you to think about things logically and try and figure out what this problem is, and then figure out what the solution is. So it's more that, you know, don't apply the band-aid, just a quick band-aid fix. Just try and figure out what the core issue is and try to solve it accordingly. So as I said, you know, that's just, I guess, an image of all the different projects that we have. So it's not all, but a lot of them. So we do 7-segment displays. Almost everyone's seen a 7-segment display. You know, all your digital displays are based on that. It could be your alarm clocks, your elevators, your traffic lights, even calculators. We do that. And then, as I said, there's security systems, there's water level indicators, traffic lights. And then we have a bit of fun around some sound-based projects. that's always a favorite with the kids. Once they've built it, the classroom's never quiet. The buzzer cannot stop buzzing, and the sirens just continue to wail. But again, I think just the idea is that, you try and approach the bigger picture of technology and science, but still try to keep it light and fun, so that it's something that they can still work with. Otherwise, it is quite challenging keeping it light at times. But that's why focusing on the hands-on aspect of it is something that's really helpful. So this was a good reminder for me as well. Back in 2018, when I started, we did do one session in Catherine, and Carla did ask me, why not again? No, I'm kidding. But I would, again, as I said, when I started this, it was more out of that general need that I saw in Greater Darwin area. But as I said, the passion that I have, it's not really limited to just where I am. So when this opportunity came, I immediately said yes, and then we ended up having like a small session in Catherine. I'm not sure when I'll be back there, but I'd love to. So it's just now that we're again just starting to chase some of those opportunities again. But again, just those smiles, you just want to, that that's a crowd wanting to have more of these experiences and more challenging projects really thrown their way. And it's not difficult to set that up for them. That's sort of something that they're missing right now. But again, through Build It Up, we just try and do as much of that outreach, when time permits. All right. So again, as I said, it all starts with basic tools and basic building blocks of STEM. So I obviously won't be doing a workshop right now, but just on this slide, I just wanted to share, we go through workshops where participants have been, they don't even realize that they did that, but they've actually read a circuit diagram and created a project using breadboards or soldered it, all without really talking about the STEM jargon that generally gets thrown at you through, if you were doing this as a school project or a course. So that's what really is the most challenging part as well. Just breaking down all these experiments and all this information that into language that one can easily follow and not get switched off because it's too difficult, or that involves math and I'm not a math person. So that's where you just share a lot of information or imagery around, you've seen a switch, or you've seen this particular thing in this device, and that's exactly what it is, although it may not necessarily be always true, but it helps us expose that functionality to the participants and then get ourselves towards the end goal, which is the working project. As we over time, we have sort of reduced the focus on sort of them learning a lot of this, because we do recognize schools are an important part, and they're doing a great job exposing all these kids to the theory. So we are happy to piggyback off of that and just focus on the hands-on, which is, just trying to solve that puzzle or the project at hand. But it's still always, every now and then, if I get bigger sessions, get people to sign up, because again, as I said, it's a very busy and a challenging time for everyone. So getting people to sign up for a 4-hour session is not going to happen. So we sort of try to be mindful of that as well. And because we ask parents to participate as well, and you can have people, multi-family, multi-children families as well. So it's not always easy to manage all of that, which is where we try to, again, then keep it short and make sure that they have an engaging experience through those workshops. So as I said, one motto that we follow at the workshops is, if you're not sure what to do next, ask yourself. And if you're not sure, I mean, if that still doesn't prod you towards what the solution could be, ask your neighbor. And if they don't know, just keep asking. Someone in the group will know. And if not, then eventually our volunteers will help you. But again, just the idea around that is, it's okay. There's no question is a bad question. Keep asking, there's a solution somewhere. It's just that we haven't figured it out yet. So being in that sort of a position where we don't have answers, where we are uncomfortable, is okay. And obviously, if they're too, a lot, as I said, a lot of times it's more managing that discomfort, because people do come to us sooner than we would expect them to. And then we sort of manage it as a negotiation around, again, not trying to give them the answers, but just asking them to figure it, somehow help them on the way to figuring it out themselves. Probably as a life of a guide or a PhD student, they can relate to that. But speaking to 11-year-olds can be very challenging when they're very determined to get the answer now. But yeah, it's fun. That's what keeps me. That's not what keeps me awake at night, but it's the fun part as well. So as I said, we really went back in 2018 when we started. We were really specifically holding these workshops as parents and children technology time sessions. So we're encouraging parents and or even just guardians to come along with kids and come try this sort of puzzle or this activity, and try and have that engagement over technology. Over time, we realized that there are other people who are interested as well. And as I said, that one photo out there is from the Council of the Aging. So you can see a few seniors out there that had a great time at our workshop as well. So these days we are sort of encouraging anyone who's really science curious. That's all you need to be. There's no prerequisites on what skills you need, what age you need to be, outside of course, being older, 11 or older. But then that's all you really need, and just come try this. And most of the times we have them come again and again, so we sort of know we are in the right direction as well. Again, just one more of our snapshots from one of the sessions we did a few months ago. All right, we have videos on this slide, so we'll see how that plays. But again, just a glimpse of the different kinds of things that you have to do when you are in one of the workshops.
The whole thing again.
You can see that there's a lot of hands-on training or process that's involved. You pretty much have to use all the tools. You have to figure out what tool to use when, and you have to solder the components in the right places for the project to work. Of course, there are times when that doesn't happen, and then that involves that bigger and more challenging process of testing, troubleshooting, and inspecting the project to get it working. So what have I seen so far through all of these sessions that I've really conducted so far? So I've definitely seen an increase in confidence, interest, as well as curiosity towards technology. You can see the kind of questions the attendees or participants ask at the first session, and then when they come back, there's a lot more confidence around what they're saying and talking about when it comes to technology, and that's very makes me very happy personally. Additionally, I've obviously seen and heard from parents as well on how coming to those sessions has then helped the children, because it's increased their confidence in overall academic engagement as well. So that is something that we, obviously the more you do and the more you engage with other people at the sessions, you sort of, especially with a successful outcome, you sort of hang on to that, and then you develop that confidence and you remember that positive experience the next time something similar happens. So that sort of, as I said, it becomes this circle of positivity and encourages you towards being even more curious about things that surround you and technology that surrounds you. So that's really useful to have that behind you. Again, as I said before, we try not to get too theoretical, but we always encourage questions in the sessions. So, and obviously the engineering and design principle behind those circuits is a lot of these are basic principles really. But having that sort of knowledge at such a young age is obviously going to be an added bonus for you, because that's not something you would have easily done otherwise. So, and again, but you have to sort of break it down into a language that they can understand, because otherwise it can be very difficult to process. We try to expose some of the math and the calculations, but it sort of depends. I've had groups where it's everyone's sort of tuned in and super engaged, and we go into the very detail of why we used a particular resistor or a particular component and not something else, and we brush it under the carpet in some other sessions. But there is that scope to go through and go to that level and understand and get the deeper meaning behind those circuitry as well. So in general, as I said, it's all about just applying your critical thinking, analytical skills, and solving problems and working in teams, which is really what I do currently anyways. So these are lifelong skills to hang on to. All right, I think I just wanted to give a shout out to the community we have here in Top End. I was, when I started, I really wasn't sure what to expect. But what I did find out was that we do have a really active STEM ecosystem here in the Top End. Whether it be the libraries, the schools, universities, there's a lot of appetite and not enough producers really to give these sort of experiences to the young adults and adults in the community. So, there's always grants available for any learning initiatives or anything that you, or any workshops that you want to do. And then there's events like Science Week, where we try and highlight a lot of the great initiatives or engagements that we have generally in STEM to try and gain them even more exposure. So really happy with a lot of, the support that I got. And I'm hoping to have a few more meaningful partnerships along the way as I continue this journey. Lastly, so this is the last slide, I guess. As with everything, you always have areas of improvement or opportunities. So I just wanted to highlight that as well, because as I said, I'm really looking forward to the future. And the experiences so far, and especially the feedback from attendees has motivated me even more to continue the outreach, not just in the greater Darwin area, but also the rural communities, because I know that they don't necessarily always get such opportunities. However, having that sort of continuous engagement is a lot of responsibility, really, and it takes a lot of energy as well, especially if that's not something, because this is not something we do full time. We have a bunch of volunteers that participate and make Build It Up what it is. So just having that sort of continuous engagement, as well as in top end, where we do have people moving constantly in different roles and across the different organizations. So just starting the story all over again is something that does take up a lot of energy and time. But it is something, as I said, we are motivated to put in that effort, and we will. But you wish, if there was one thing I could change, maybe that's what I would. And again, making activities accessible. So as I said, you have sports is such a big part of the culture here. I think a lot of the times we find that people are, because on weekends, people have either practice or students as well. A lot of the kids have footy or cricket or swimming, some other session. And then again, with families that have more than one child, it can become a lot of these conflicting priorities, and how to just make it more accessible and available to all these different people who are also interested in science, but it's just a bit more challenging for them to make that time and come attend a workshop. Outreach in rural areas. So as I said, that's something we are looking at going forward, and making sure that we can hold more of these workshops in the rural areas as well. As well, and the last one is improving diversity is not specifically um, a challenge for Build It Up. It's just my personal project, because one of the hidden objectives why I sort of launched into Build It Up was that I was personally looking to just have more girls in STEM. So every time we're trying to do a new workshop, I'm sort of always silently trying to catch or get a count of the girls that are participating, and it has improved over time as well. I'm very happy to say that it is no longer considered just a boys only. It's no longer a boys club, and it's okay for girls to be in engineering as well. And a lot of girls do not shy away from trying those projects as well. So that's it's improving as it is. It could improve even more. So that's sort of where I think on that note, I'd like to sort of end the session and open it up for questions, if any. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaki. Anybody has questions? Yeah. John, you have any questions?
She might have already covered it, but what is the driving force or motivation behind in 2018?
Sorry, you have to repeat again.
Yes. Oh, sure. So the question was, what's the driving force, or what really made me start Build It Up? So as I said, back in 2018, I guess I was new to Darwin. I had that new energy, and I was keen to explore everything that Darwin had or didn't have on offer. And as I said, I've always generally been STEM curious and passionate. So I just casually mentioned it to the then Inspired NT coordinator, and they said, no, you should really do this. And again, as I said, we weren't sure where the trials would land, what would happen, what the outcome would be. But because we got such a great positive feedback out of those trials that we did back in 2018, I couldn't just ignore that and not do something about it. I should also add that I have a very supportive family who tends to be equally busy as well. So I feel less guilty investing my time and energy in this. But really, that's sort of where it all began for me. Thank you.
I think it's more a comment for me than a question, but yeah, I did relate a lot with when you said it's just very hard to compete with the sports because if everybody has that agenda already in the weekend, that's usually quite full. And I think, is that why you have all those different workshops happening the same day? So you try to cover the people in different times?
So ideally, the way I had the original vision that I had for the workshops was, so you have really a 7 or 8 week dedicated course where you get people to come, week after week, and then they build on the skills that they learned the previous week. However, as I said, since I'm not with a school, or we haven't really tried that, because it was challenging to get people week after week for that duration of 10, 12 weeks, just because either the school holidays would come in, or I have sports, or I have some other activity. And if the kids didn't have it, the parents did. So it was, as I said, yes, that was one of the reasons. So I said, we'll just make it more accessible and available. If you've attended one session before, it doesn't matter. I'm happy to track it for you. just let me know, if you can make it. That's why we offer different slots as well, because people have a session or have sports in the morning, but they're available in the afternoon. And that's where having that sort of a room or a venue has been a blessing, really. Working with the libraries and the universities has been.
And building on that question, do you have a few students that have graduated, that has done all the different ones? How it works?
I did actually. I had, it was actually one of the younger kids that I had, and I had, because they did each and every session, and then with the breadboards as well. And they actually came back as, they were so keen, they said they were happy to volunteer. So every time I have a session at Palmerston Library, I just give a shout out, and the kids are more than happy to volunteer and help other students. So yes, a few of them.
Oh, that's a great story. Well, if you have, okay, cool.
So speaking from perspective working in the libraries, it sounds like a lot of what you do has a lot of parallels with how we go in the way you approach it and the way sort of activities you have. We've worked together before. And something I'm curious about, so you aim at kids who are 11 and older. How do you go with like ages 14 and above? Do you get a lot of interest from there? Or do you see sort of a drop off after the sort of middle school years?
So actually, I didn't have, it does tend to taper off. But what I did find is once I started opening it back up for like that young adults sort of a age group, and not necessarily just the kids in that 11 or grade 6 to grade 9 bracket, I did get, a lot more interest. And actually, I didn't even know that they had registered for themselves. I thought they were accompanying a kid, accompanying a child, but they actually came because they were curious and keen to learn. So it's actually been better, because then they do understand a lot of those concepts, and you don't necessarily have to avoid the concepts or shy away or hide them. But I have seen that, again, you can't necessarily do like 10 sessions with them, but they do stick enough to get like to the advanced projects. They may not do all of them, they sort of do representative, and then they think they've gotten it. So yes, but I just want to add, since you asked about the age group, I do get a lot of parents of, I want to say like 5 to 8 year age group that are interested and keen to start kids early. And I actually have to a lot of the times tell them that maybe come back in 2 years. And that's what I'm thinking. Maybe I'll just have to probably look for a very different set of projects that sort of works for them, because that's really a great age to get them engaged. And it would be fantastic if someone has that already figured out and ready to go, because then I can just start them there. But I have had to tell a lot of them, no, you shouldn't be soldering yet. They don't always like it. I did get feedback that, oh no, we do homeschooling, so we've done even more complicated things already, you know. So it's a bit of a balance. I think I guess every child is different. But I was more surprised that some kids wanted to start that early, and then there's that drop off, and you try to figure out where all the 11-year-olds are, or 11 to 14 generally, but yeah.
Okay, well, that was a great talk. Thank you, Gagi. And next week we are going to have Jane Thomas from NESP, and she's a science communicator, and she will be talking about her project here, not just in the NT, but it's pretty much Northern Australia. And thank you very much, and see you guys next week.